So good evening everyone. My name is Yuliia and this is Svitlana. We represent B50, a volunteer organization from Kyiv. We would like to thank you for the opportunity to present our photo exhibition here in Hamburg and for the opportunity to show something that is very special for us. Both of us have been regular volunteers in the community since the summer 2022, when Kyiv began to recover from the consequences of the occupation and the fighting moved to the south and east of the country, where our army was able to push the enemy back. Although we help the army and help our organization in other projects, the main task that we both do at B50 Community is to dismantle destroyed houses in the Kyiv region, and this is where we met. Our photo exhibition, which you saw in front of the memorial, is our way of showing the world the consequences that Russia has left us with, and how everyone who is able to help is helping to fight them. Our exhibition is about the invisible helpers from the B50, but we have just an example. Everyone in Ukraine is now an invisible helper, helping to assemble drones at home, delivering humanitarian aid to the victims, and taking care of wounded soldiers or children of war. Everyone in B50 is a volunteer. Almost everyone in Ukraine is a volunteer. Children hold fundraisers at school to buy pickup trucks for the army instead of spring fairs. Grandmothers spend their evenings weaving camouflage nets and knitting warm socks for soldiers instead of sweaters for their grandchildren. We, among others, help to eliminate war wherever possible and help the victims move forward. First, we want to tell you about our community, because we understand that this is not a typical type of charitable organization, or rather the kind that should exist in the modern developed world. It was strange for us once too, but since 2014, when Russia annexed the eastern regions, and with the beginning of the full-scale invasion 2 years ago, it's no longer a strange thing. We will also show you exactly where we work and what Moshun looks like. Our work on cleaning up the destructions and arranging children's bomb shelters, and tell you personal stories and memories. So let's start with what B50 is.
So B50 is eliminating the consequences of the invasion in the Kyiv region, which was partially occupied by Russians. In the course of 1.5 months, until our soldiers liberated these territories, they left behind destruction and devastation. Holes from artillery shells, destroyed homes, killed and tortured civilians. These are common stories in almost every village. These stories are not from TV or the internet. These are stories we heard from the people we helped. Over the past 1.5 years, we as an organization have adapted and are helping to the best of our ability, because unfortunately a lot of help is needed. All aspects of our work are done by volunteers, from administration and design to cleaning up the destruction. Some people do it all the time, others do it when they can. These are all people who create a community. The mission of our organization is to rebuild communities affected by war. Although we are located in the capital, Kyiv, we also help in the front line and deoccupied territories, delivering humanitarian aid, books to children's libraries, and repairing children's bomb shelters in our region. Moral support is very important for people who have experienced the Russian peace at the time. Our help is not about just physical cleanup. It is a sign that we care about the people who have suffered this tragedy. They see support, concern, and smiles, and they know that they are not alone. This helps them and us to move forward. The unofficial birthday of the B50 community is April 6, 2022. It was on this day that the first organized trip to Irpin and Bucha took place, when the military started letting civilians into the liberated towns and villages of the Kiev region to help. Since then, many people have gone through our organization. The future co-founders of organization met near the walls of the Territorial Defense Quarters on Bratislavska Street in Kiev, where they came to look for ways to help. The headquarters received a code name from the street name and house number, B50, which is where the name of our community came from. Volunteers gathered and traveled in an organized column to the newly liberated Bucha and Irpin, stopping in front of a destroyed bridge and then walking. Initially, a simple sign-up form was organized. Later, the coordinators built a system for registration for trips, accepting applications from homeowners, and distributing teams to locations. About 20% of the community volunteers are regular helpers who devote time several times a week or every weekend to helping others. Another part also helps online, helping to administrate or by donating. For many, it's not just help, it's really a community, a good company that helps keep going and not give up. At the beginning, everything was very simple because we just did what was in front of us. But still we can say that over the past year and a half, we have organized at least 320 volunteer events, from cleaning up the damage to dismantling animal shelters destroyed by shelling.
We usually get together around 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning and work until the sun is shining or we get tired. One volunteer trip is a full-fledged working day that these people decide to give for free, their energy, their time, and their talent. Over the past year and a half, we have also developed as an organization. We have divided the areas of assistance and developed separate programs and projects. We are an official organization and work in accordance with the law, submit reports, and take the process seriously. This allows us to receive grants and show donors that we are trustworthy because we understand that this is important. The rubble removal was our first project. It's called Clean Up. It's not just about dismantling the house, it's about cleaning it up and making sure that the owners no longer see what was precious to them, but now just ruins. It's very difficult, but it allows the owners to say goodbye to the past that has been destroyed and start building a new world for themselves on a clean foundation. This kind of help is also important for volunteers. For many, such physical labor is an opportunity to feel and see the result of the help with their own eyes and to contribute to a common cause as a team. Through this physical fatigue, they get rid of the negative energy that accumulates during the week due to the constant terrible news. Cleaning up the ruins eventually turned into reconstruction. Educational institutions are not allowed to teach without an equipped bomb shelter. Parents lose the ability to provide for their families while staying at home with their children. Some of the basements of school and kindergarten meet basic safety criteria and can be used as a shelter if they are repaired. We help schools and kindergarten to repair these bomb shelters, giving children the opportunity to learn, to be with their peers, to feel that at least part of their lives is normal. Our first project was a kindergarten in Bucha, a small town near Kiev. Here we turned an old basement into playrooms for children, bringing life back to this devastated city. After the renovation work is completed, volunteer artists take over the work in these bomb shelters. They paint themed pictures on the wall, tuning this basement into classroom and playrooms. In this way, they do not differ from the rooms upstairs, which are ordinary schoolrooms. We want this to be remembered by children who have to go down to the shelters almost every day when their studies are interrupted by the sound of sirens because Russian drones or missiles are in the air. This is a necessity in this difficult time. But it does not mean that we cannot make this experience better and more comfortable for children.
B50 also helps children in frontline areas or where the Russians have already been. They leave behind destroyed schools and libraries, often burning Ukrainian language books. We have selected 50 of the best educational books on various topics to rebuild these libraries. Plus, it's a good way to cheer up the children who have been through so much. In this way, kids from the entire community will have access to modern literature about developing their skills and critical thinking or choosing a profession. These are encyclopedias, books on inclusion, politics and financial literacy, history and science, a mini library for the growth of a smart and developed generation of Ukrainians. B50 also frequently helps animal shelters. The shelter in the photo was shelled by Russian artillery and many animals were killed. Here we are helping to dismantle the destroyed enclosures to allow for the new ones to be built. The shelter also takes in animals from the villages in the Kherson region that was flooded after the Kakhovska hydroelectric power station dam was blown up. We like such days because for us communicating with the animals in the shelter is a kind of recharging of energy. This year we have moved to proactively promote volunteering. We are a country of volunteers, but we also want to engage a wider range of people, those who think that they have nothing to contribute, to develop volunteering as a habit. We interview our volunteers and organize corporate volunteering. For almost a year now, our first photo exhibition has been on display in Ukraine, and now we are showing the consequences of the invasion to the whole world. Everyone who signs up for our trips either finds us by themselves, sees an announcement, or looks for ways to help. They bring friends, acquaintances, and family. People try it, people stay. It's not for everyone. Cleaning up the ruins can be tiring. But if a person wants to help, he will find a way, with or without us. We welcome any help. People who are not satisfied with just donating or signing petitions come to volunteer to help with the aftermath of the invasion. They are proactive people who want to use their free time to do something useful. Sometimes we are joined by foreign volunteers who visit Ukraine to see with their own eyes the trail left by Russia. Volunteers in the B50 community can be students and pensioners, people of different ages, different experiences, and very different professionals and skills. We can safely say that the majority of our community is made up of women, and there is no question of what we can or cannot do. Everyone at B50 works to the best of their abilities and chooses their own tasks and pace. The cruelty the world saw in Bucha is not the only example. There are many places like this and they need a helping hand. We are taking a part of the cleanup efforts so that the victims can start to return to normal life as much as possible. All you need to do is sign up for a trip next weekend. We receive support from concerned Ukrainians, from those who learn about our work abroad, from our own volunteers, and from charitable foundations. But we can really do more. The funds received by our organization are used to buy tools and protective equipment for volunteers, construction materials to rebuild children's bomb shelters, and books for children's libraries. B50 also has no plans to stop. The war does not stop and does not wait. As long as the sound of air raid alarms is heard outside the window and our soldiers are fighting for our border, we will also do our part, and even after that.
The village of Moshchun, which you can see in the photos of our photo exhibition, is our place. Having arrived here in May 2022, we actually stayed here because an incredible amount of help is needed here. 2 years ago, Moshun was an ordinary suburban village with country houses, pensioners in their gardens, a dense forest and a lake. People came here to relax from the city. In this village, at the end of March 2022, the Ukrainian army defeated elite Russian units that were moving towards to the capital, Kyiv. The village became the last stand, the shield of Kyiv. The fighting near the village lasted several weeks. It is just 5 kilometers from Kyiv and a few kilometers from the Hostomel airport, where the Russian paratroopers were landed. It was in what is called Position Zero. People were fleeing the village, and everyone who didn't make it has terrible stories to tell. Looting and murder, surviving in basements. In the battle for this village, 84 Ukrainian soldiers were lost, and 12 civilians were killed. This turned the tide of the invasion totally. But the view of Moshun speaks for itself. We first saw Moshun almost destroyed, without water and electricity, with holes from shells in the houses. The forest in front of the village was cut by bullets. This is how most Moshun houses now looks like. In the fields around the village, you can see craters from explosions, mine warning, and even Russian military vehicles left over from the fighting. One of the fences has bullet holes turned into drawing of flowers. There are still inscriptions on the fences that say people are living here, which unfortunately did not stop the Russian invaders. But many will not return because there is simply no place to go, not only physically but also mentally. This place is filled with terrible memories, and the life they would like to return no longer exists. The village is coming back to life, or rather trying to live on. There are small shops, a post office, a humanitarian and medical headquarters, and buses running. Volunteers are also coming here like us.
I particularly remember one family from Makariv in the Kiev region that we helped in the August of 2022. They did not leave their place, their home, until Russians occupied the part of the village. A 15-year-old boy, the son of the owners, was evacuated by his classmate on a moped. It seemed scary and almost unreal to me, 2 teenagers on a moped riding under fire. The boy's mother evacuated relatively normally with her friends, and his father stayed at home because he could not leave his paralyzed mother. They stayed in Makariv until the electricity, gas, and water went off. And then this man teamed up with his neighbor who had the same situation with his mother. They poured the rest of the fuel into one car. Somehow they put sick mothers on the back seat, and they drove to the west of Ukraine. Unfortunately, the owner's mother died there. And he spoke about her in such a touching way, with such a great love, and he cried that he could not bury her near her home at the moment. The owners were very friendly and welcoming, so we were not at all surprised when the half of the street came to help B50 volunteers. There were teenagers, the son's classmates, adult men, friends of the owner, and young guys, just their neighbors. Together it was easier for us to dismantle the large ruined house, where there was a lot of work to be done. The heat was a big challenge this day. All day long, our team walked under the scorching sun. To escape the heat, we drank 18 liters of juice that had survived the fighting in the basement and was generally given to us by the owner. After a long day of our work, they suddenly threw up a real feast for us. It was really unexpected because we are not used to this. We do not expect people who have lost almost everything to take care of us. Having neither a house or a kitchen, the woman cooked a bunch of dishes somewhere at her friend's place in the other part of the village, and her husband brought all the pots and pans by bicycle. Hosts, neighbors, volunteers, we all had dinner together and recalled the horrors that the residents of the Kiev region experienced in the spring of 2022. With tears in his eyes, the owner thanked us for our help and for not leaving them alone. A year and a half has passed. I've been to many locations and I heard many stories. The stories that hurt me the most are those of little children who were sitting in basements, left without homes, sometimes without parents. We found this toy in the village of Zahaltsi, where we helped in the autumn of 2023. For me, this teddy bear is a symbol of a ruined childhood because all Ukrainian children became children of war. I really hope that the children who played with these toys is now alive and healthy and is small enough not to understand or remember those terrible events.
We joke that we adopted Moshun because that is where we have concentrated most of our help. About 80% of the buildings in Moshun have been destroyed. About 2,000 people used to live here, now there are only a few hundred. Those who returned to the village but found no surviving buildings, only ashes, live in modular housing provided by a charitable organization. Some people have equipped summer kitchen, shelves, and garages for wintering. The owners who can do it now are slowly starting to rebuild. Firstly, those whose land we have already cleared. The process is simple. Owners submit application to us for help with cleaning. There are a lot of them. We have a waiting list. The coordinators inspect the site, draw up a plan, and estimate the amount of work and volunteers needed. You can sign up for this trip throughout the week, and we go on weekends. Upon arrival in the village, volunteers receive the necessary tools, protective equipment, and tasks for the day from the coordinator. Everyone can do this task. No special knowledge is required. We load the remains of the house and bricks into buckets and wheelbarrows and transport them to special containers. Whole bricks and the owner's belongings are stored separately. Small country houses of pensioners, large houses where the whole family lived, outbuildings, garages, and greenhouses. Everything that needs to be dismantled, we do it. Still, you can learn new things here. Many people now know how to work with grinder or a jackhammer. Sometimes large equipment help us break down large remnants of walls, but in many places it will do more harm than good, because the owners want to rebuild new housing on this foundation. For many people, hiring contractors for cleaning up is not an affordable option right now. We work next to each other, rest and have lunch next to each other, and even celebrate birthdays at volunteers' event. Moshun has become our place now. I doubt any of us had ever been to this village before. Now, we are here every weekend.
For almost 2 years now, our volunteers have been searching through the ruins to find reflections of the past, surviving items that just waiting to tell their own story. Every item we pull out of the rubble was once important or precious to someone. The plates are witnesses of dishes, or are witnesses of dinners and family celebrations, and the cups must have been used to drink the most delicious coffee or tea. And every toy we find reminds us that not so long ago life was bustling here, and children's laughter could be heard. These things are a huge part of the past, telling the stories of people who once ate, played, welcomed guests, and simply lived their lives. These are things that everyone has at home. You brought them or received them as a gift. Someone spent a lot of time choosing them in a store or brought them back from vacation. And even though those things are often things just for us today, sometimes they mangled and burned, but let them be a testament of our ability to rise again after any challenge.
People were leaving their homes in a hurry because of the constant Russian shelling and the threat of occupation, which eventually took place. They did not even have time to take their documents. Everything material was burning in family nests built by several generations. We saw burned cars and a rare motorcycle. At the request of the owners, we searched for family albums under the rubble. Unfortunately, the paper had no chance to resist the fire. Glass melts and take on strange shapes. Here, you can see an example of these melted glass bottles. Our volunteers touch the wreckage of the other people's life so often that they have stopped counting. I remember a story shared by Alexander from Lisna Street in the village of Moshun. In the first day of the invasion, he took his wife and children to a safer place, away from the explosions and gunfire that were already very close to the village. He planned to return the next day, as he had a dog in the yard, a Belgian shepherd named Max. Alexander asked a neighbor to look after the dog, as he was going to return very soon. His wife's car was also left in the garage. However, the next day returning to Moshun meant death. The village was under constant fire, street fighting broke out, and the Russian army was advancing. The dog's fate seemed terrible, and Alexander blamed himself for not taking the dog away immediately because of his naivety. Later, a neighbor was able to get in touch and inform Alexander that the dog was not in the yard anymore, and the garage was also empty. Then Alexander received a call from our soldiers. They explained that they had to take a car to evacuate civilians, and that Max was also in a perfect health. This story has a happy ending. We saw Max, and he's really fine. The car that helped save several lives was also returned. The garage, however, burned down, as well as the house. As we mentioned earlier, our reconstruction and shelters project turned gloomy basements into not only comfortable, but also bright and safe shelters for children from air threats. Missile impacts or falling debris can occur anywhere in the country during any of the declared air alerts. 54% of air alerts were announced when children were at school and had to go down to the shelter. The danger lasts from half an hour to 7 hours in a row. This way, children stay in comfort during air raids without any health risk, and we preserve their childhood and psyche. Now, we are working on renovation a children's bomb shelter in the village of Zavorichi in Kiev region. For many weekends in a row, our volunteers have been making repairs there and then painting murals on the wall. This was the basement where the local hid during the occupation of the village at the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in March 2022. And they had a lot to hide from. Enemy shelling destroyed private houses and the church with 150 years history. The 4 rooms of the shelter for preschoolers and primary school students who study here will be completed soon. We choose a different theme for each shelter. Here it is Window to Nature. Murals of the ocean and desert already decorate these walls. And now video.
stories we have told are just a small window into the lives of Ukrainians today. We live our lives to the accompaniment of the air raid alarms. We learn about missiles hitting residential buildings not from the news, but from the open window of our kitchen. Not only that, but we read the obituaries of those who died either at the front or from shelling in the rear, and too often we see familiar names in them. Friends, relatives, classmates, those with whom we used to walk or just talked a few years ago at someone's birthday party or at a concert. 2 years ago, the war came to the whole country. Drones flew to the western regions, to the border with Poland and Romania. Russian soldiers and column of Russian equipment marched through peaceful villages in the north, trying to seize the capital. But this war has been going for us for a long time. 10 years, in fact, when Crimea, Donetsk and Lugansk were annexed in 2014, when people died during Maidan, when the first Ukrainian soldier was killed in Crimea. One of our volunteers had to leave her home twice to escape Russian tanks, in 2014 from a town near Donetsk and in 2022 when the war came even closer. In Mashun, we met a family who lost everything in the Lugansk region in 2014 when Russians came there. They didn't give up and found the strength to start over by building a house near Kyiv. However, they lost everything again in 2022 for the same reason, and they did not give up. Again, sharing with us their plans to rebuild their homes, because having lost everything material twice, they did not lose the most important thing: their unity, strength of spirit, and motivation to fight, just like all of us. We have learned to live with the war. We adapt, we volunteer to help each other and the country as a whole. We do not give up, and we do our best to bring the victory closer. Everything possible to help restore life wherever possible. Our organization is making its contribution to the restoration of the country, and we sincerely dream that one day our help will no longer be needed. But this day is not close, so we are working hard to keep going. Of course, someone may wonder why ordinary people do what the state can or should do. In an ideal world, yes, but we do not live in an ideal world. We have a realistic assessment of the scope of the challenges facing Ukraine, and we are not surprised that they require the involvement of everyone who can contribute. According to the latest data, more than 160,000 homes across the country have been damaged or destroyed. According to official data, there are 60,000 premises in Ukraine that can be used as shelters if repaired and restored. This is where it is possible to count, meaning the non-occupied territories. So everyone is working and there is enough work for everyone. So thank you for attention.